I've always been a curious person. Try a new road, a different direction, another adventure, or maybe failure. In fact, when I met my wife Kathy, I was actually living in my truck until it was repossessed. She married me anyway. And I did get a job soon after that. But like I said, I'm a curious person, and the next job always looked more attractive. Needless to say, I've had a series of career starts over the years. I was a door-to-door salesman, a children's home counselor, a substitute school teacher, truck driver, fireman, building contractor, and a journalist. But moving from state to state, constantly uprooting my family, the kids changing schools every few years, well, that can be hard on a family. And that's when I realized I needed to find something stable for the sake of my family. I thought about becoming a teacher. That certainly is stable. And I already had a degree in psychology. But to get a teaching certificate would mean 4 more years of undergrad study with no income. That's when someone suggested I become a teaching pastor, more like a counselor, he said, and I could work in a small church while I finished my grad studies. I was raised in the church. I could do that. But, like all my career detours, my faith journey had been full of detours too. I was too conservative for my liberal friends, too liberal for the conservatives, and too irreverent for the Catholics. I visited the nursing homes and the hospitals, attended all the community events. I even joined the Rotary in Kiwanis. I really did try to fit in, be normal. But what I couldn't get out of my head were all the homeless people in town, walking the streets, on the corner holding a sign, "We'll work for food." Sometimes they had kids with them, and that really bothered me. I remembered all my struggles when I was homeless. So I tried to help them as best as I could with food or money. And sometimes I even invited them into the church to get warm in winter. But the church people complained. They didn't like all those homeless people hanging around good people like them. Rumors filtered through the church. A board meeting was called, and I was fired. I was 53 years old, an age when most people are planning retirement. But I was out of a job, no money saved. I had to move out of the church's house. The fear I felt, it was like a 1,000-pound weight pressing down on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was having a heart attack. What are we going to do now? How will I feed my family? Where will we even live? The hardest part was the embarrassment. People I thought were my friends no longer returned my calls. Some even walked across the street when they saw me in town. I could see it in their eyes. That look people give you when they don't know what to say or even be seen with you. You become invisible. Those feelings soon bled over into my family. I couldn't provide for them now. I felt so ashamed and so alone. And then I got angry. I was just trying to do the right thing. I don't deserve to be fired. That's when my wife, who stayed with me through all my detours, I might add, she asked the question that changed my life. What brought you here? A simple question, really. And suddenly it was all so clear. I just wanted to help people who were struggling like I did. Then do it, she said. So we scraped together what little money we had and bought an old, neglected house in town as a homeless shelter. And then, as we slowly remodeled it, I realized it had become the embodiment of our faith. Neglected, broken people like like our house, can be repaired. And with that, we founded Good Samaritan Home. Now, I'd like to tell you that's the end of the story, but it's not. Not when we took in a homeless man who just got out of prison. He just wanted a second chance. But there were protests in the neighborhood, petitions to City Hall, even threats of violence. What I remember most was what one woman said to the council. "I'm a Christian. I believe in helping people, but not those people." At first, I used data to convince my critics that offering shelter to a homeless man, even if he's been in prison, actually makes the community safer. After all, without safe housing, you can't get a job. And without a job, the chance of going back to jail is much greater. But statistics have very little impact on fear. And that's when I used my snow shovel argument. Every time it snowed, I got out my snow shovels, and my homeless residents and I cleaned every sidewalk on our block for everyone, up and down the block without saying a word. In time, and it did take time, my neighbors began to see homeless people as just people. And that's when everything started to change. Over the past 24 years, we have grown well beyond our house as a shelter. We now have 19 houses in 3 counties, where up to 100 men and women can find a safe place to live until they can get back on their feet. Some stay for just a few weeks. Some, like Jimmy, stay for years. Jimmy was 67 years old when we found him freezing in his old truck in the middle of winter. He stayed with us for 14 years, and just before he died, he said this was the only home he ever had. I can't help but think that this is what the Bible has in mind when it says, if we don't love the people we see, how can we love a God we can't see? I've never seen God, but I have seen too many hungry, lonely people desperate for a second chance. So now my church is in the street where I believe God would be today. If I can help one more person get a second chance, then maybe by doing that, they will see God in me. And here's the irony. If I hadn't been fired by that church, I never would have started Good Samaritan Home. And we never would have helped the 2,500 men and women who have gotten a second chance in our houses. And I never would have written that novel I always wanted to write, because now I had something to write about. So I want to thank the people on that church board for firing me. I never could have done all this without you.